What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Bryce, and today I'm going to be reading chapter 32 of the Parker Inheritance. Let's begin. Chapter 32. On Saturday morning, after a quick game of basketball, Candace and Brandon biked to the library to search as many books as they could about sports. It turned out there were a whole bunch of teams called the Oilers, so Brandon picked books about the Negro Leagues, hockey, and football. They made a list of all the famous players from each of the teams, then added pi to each famous player's jersey number, but didn't know what to look for after that. In addition to Brandon's books, Candace chose a book about tennis and a biography of Althea Gibson, the African-American woman who won Wimbledon in 1957. Ellie had mentioned how Coach Washington had wanted Siobhan to be the next Althea Gibson. Maybe there was more to the connection. They returned home to see their mothers on Brandon's porch drinking coffee. They dropped their bikes in the yard and walked up to the steps. "About time," Brandon's mother said. "We've got to get a move on. Don't want to miss the African dance performance. It's the best part of the festival." "Sorry we're late," Brandon said. "Research." "I can't wait to see your project," his mother continued as she kissed him on the cheek. Y'all sure are spending enough time on it." Brandon shrugged. "Yeah, Candace has been a big help. And what about you, Mom? How's your morning?" Candace asked, trying to change the subject. "Pretty good," she said between sips of coffee. "I revised one chapter and added a new scene. Slow and steady wins the race. But enough about me. Tell me about this project." "Not yet," Candace said. "You know, slow and steady wins the race. We'll tell you about it once we're finished." Then she smiled. "So, do we need to grab lunch before we head to the park?" "There'll be plenty of food there from local restaurants," her mom said. I hope Sam's has a booth." I think she's talking about Sam's Club. I don't know. Tori said as she stepped onto the porch from the house. The Weston game was tucked underneath her arm. "I'm craving a chili cheese dog." That sounds very good. "That sounds nice," Candace's mother said. She smiled as she noticed the book. "Hey, I know that book," she said, reaching for it. My mother loved it." Candace could feel her eyes bugging out of her head. "She did?" Her mother nodded as she flipped it open. "Yeah, we have a copy at home somewhere. She even tried to get you to read it when you were younger, but you didn't seem interested, and she didn't want to force it." Candace turned to Brandon. His mouth was hanging open. "So, about those chili cheese dogs," her mother continued, handing the book back to Tori, not how can you handle a book? "Do you know if they have a low-fat option, or maybe a vegetarian?" She trailed off as a large SUV pulled up in front of the Joneses' house. The windows were too tinted for them to see who was inside. "Trouble," Tori mumbled. "Hush," her mother said. She waved as Millie Stanford stepped outside of the vehicle. Milo was dressed in a black basketball jersey. "We saw y'all and figured we'd stop to say hello," Mr. Stanford said. "Okay, you said it," Tori whispered. Now you can leave." "Yeah, bye-bye." Miss Jones smiled at Millie as she pinched her daughter's arm. "Enough," she whispered through her teeth. "I was hoping to see you at the game," Mrs. Stanford said to Candace as she reached the bottom step. "Milo scored 15 points and 7 rebounds," Milo added. "Almost a double-double." Candace shrugged. "Oh, sorry, I guess I got the dates wrong." "It's so nice to finally meet you," Mrs. Stanford said to Candace's mother. "I'm Millie, and this is Milo. I met your daughter at church last week." She batted her eyelashes. "Maybe we'll see you there this Sunday." "Perhaps," her mother replied, shaking the woman's hand. Mrs. Stanford looked at their house across the street. "I was so sorry to hear about your mother's death. If you don't mind me asking, How did she pass away? Heart disease, her mother said. Ah, yes, it's one of those silent killers. She readjusted her sunglasses. I thought that. And please don't take this the wrong way. Perhaps she had been suffering from dementia, she said. You know, given everything that happened before within the park and the tennis courts, and trust me, her mother crossed her arms and stood taller. It was a heart attack. Mrs. Stanford clearly wasn't getting the hint. There are a lot of factors that could lead to someone passing away, she said. She said, my best friend's father has Alzheimer's. It's such a dreadful disease, and it causes him to act so strangely. She smiled wide enough to eclipse the sun. I'm sorry for prying. It's just the more we know about our loved one's health, the more we know about our health. That's facts. Yes, well, thank you so much for your concern. Candace's mother looked at her watch. We were about to head to the Juneteenth festival. Perhaps we'll see you there. I heard it was boring, Milo said, frowning. Nothing but a bunch of stories about how we used to be slaves. Not wrong. Mrs. Stanford quickly patted Milo's shoulder. Oh, you know these boys. They don't appreciate cultural education. We've hoped to attend every year, but we've always had a conflict. She leaned closer. Although out of all the places to hold it, why would they choose Vickers Park? It's just not safe. I hadn't heard about any crime at the park. Brandon's mother said, has something happened there recently? Perhaps not at the park itself, Mrs. Stanford clarified, but you know that neighborhood. Isn't Vista Heights the oldest African American neighborhood in Lambert? Candace's mom asked. It seems like the perfect place to hold a celebration of our freedom. Oh, yes, perhaps. If you put it like that. Mrs. Stanford looked at her own watch. I don't got a watch on my. It's a watch tan. Feel me? I should let you all go. I should let you all go. Feel free to call if you need anything. Pick up the phone. Juanita has my number. She smiled at Candace. Same for you. Maybe we should have you over for a play date. I'm sure you're into just as many of those dreadful shoot them up games as the rest of these kids. Yeah, bang, bang, bang. She and Milo walked back to their SUV. I will never speak to you again if you go to Milo's house for a play date. Brandon deadpanned to Candace. But what about all those dreadful video games, she asked. And how is his mom supposed to spy on us if I don't talk to her? Don't be so snarky, Candace's mother said. We hardly know them. I'm sure Milo is quite nice. He's not, Candace said. Nope, Brandon agreed. They're right, Tori said, still rubbing her arm. Where her mother had pinched her. Yeah, right there. What I just rubbed. We've known Milo since we moved here. He as rotten as they come. I'm guessing pretty much everyone in the neighborhood knows that, everyone except his mother. Miss Jones said, but what can I say? People see what they want to see, especially about people they love. She leaned over and pecked Tori on the cheek. It's the fallacy of mothers, she sighed, and wives. Candace turned to watch Mrs. Stanford drive off. It seemed rude to be looking at Brandon's mom right then when she felt sure Miss Jones was really talking about someone else. But at least you two don't have to worry about Millie for much longer. Miss Jones continued, filling the silence. Candace turned back around. Why do you say that? Miss Jones's mouth gaped open. She looked at Candace's mother. Did I? Oh dear. I ruined the surprise, didn't I? It wasn't a surprise, Candace's mother said, her words measured. I just wasn't sure until last night. She glanced at Brandon. Maybe we can talk about it later. You sold the house, didn't you? Candace asked. She crossed her arms. No, it's not that, her mother said. Then she sighed. Might as well tell it. The house is still on the market, but your father's friend completed all the major renovations and brought in a new crew for the finishing touches. The realtor thinks she can sell the house even if we're living in it. She took a deep breath. We can head back to Atlanta as early as next weekend. Candace blinked. That soon? I know the idea of moving has been really hard on you, her mother continued. I know how much you miss your father and how much he misses you. Now you'll have a chance to hang out with Dee Dee and Courtney a little before school starts. Isn't that great? Candace nodded. Yeah, yeah. He was. Wait, hold up. I skipped a part. She looked at Brandon, but she couldn't see his face. He was staring at the ground, his hands right around his backpack straps. Would he keep searching for Parker's fortune without her if they didn't find it before she left? Would he still share it with her? And once she did leave, who would play basketball with them in the backyard? Who would he trade books with? Who would she trade books with? Tori wrapped her arm around her brother's neck. Hey, I left something upstairs. Walk with me, okay? He nodded quickly, still looking down, and let his sister lead him inside. Candace wanted to follow them so badly. She wanted to say something to Brandon, anything, but she didn't know what. And then he was gone. So that was chapter 32. So tomorrow I'll be reading chapter 33 right there. And that's about it. Peace out.